All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Nyla Fry.
Here.
Trisha Brown.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Kristen Runge.
Here.
Aaron Moran.
Here.
Joel Zisselsberger.
Here.
Robert McPherson.
Here.
All right, next item is confirmation of open meeting compliance.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on 3/29. The final agenda was posted in all three official posting locations on 3/27, 3/28, and 3/29. And the final agenda and packet were made available online on 3/27. For the audience, please be sure you sign in for accurate record keeping with your name, address, and municipality. And those interested in participating in public comment, please fill out the form prior to the agenda item.
Excellent. Third item is public comment. Do we have any cards turned in?
We do. Heather Murray, 603 O'Malley Street, Waunakee.
Oh, yep.
There we go. I'm Heather, for those of you who don't know me, and I am a resident of Waunakee. I also own Art House Preschool, which a lot of you were at the gathering that we had last month. I just wanted to say thank you for putting these items on the agenda tonight about childcare. We had a lot of thoughtful conversations last month, and I know going forward, there will be more thoughtful conversations. So as we spend the year with state elected officials not making decisions about how to support childcare, we're just thankful that you are all willing to look at this tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
I have no other comment cards.
All right, excellent. And no other comments? All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda then is the consent agenda. Do we have anything we'd like to be pulled? If not, do we have a motion to approve it?
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is committee reports. First on the list is Community Development Authority. We met. We reviewed the Waunakee Housing Betterment Fund progress and have received some applications for that. Applications are still open, so please continue to spread the word that we have money out there for people who need to improve their homes. We had a discussion of priorities for the upcoming year. And we'll be meeting on that in April to set our agenda for the upcoming year for some of the bigger projects we're hoping to tackle. And then we discussed doing an assessment and updating the Housing Task Force goals. It's been about a year and a half since we've had an update on that. And so we'll be looking at that in April and May as well and reporting back to the board on our goals on that front. Waunakee Utilities Commission, and Joe.
Basically, we approved the purchase of a small bucket truck instead of a large bucket truck. Sorry about that. There was a substation circuit breakers approval. That was a fairly large amount, but there's a long lead time on that, just like everything else right now. And there was discussion of wells, water storage, and some water system management software. And then finally, there was a contribution to the Waunakee Neighborhood Connection Neighbor Fund to help with utility bills for Waunakee residents in need for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Waunakee Area Fire District.
District met on March 25th. We went through two audits. One is the ISO audit that talks about, and I'm making sure the document for me so I get this correct, but it looks at how well we do with our fire suppression capabilities. The village received a grade of 3, which we were told is the highest that the village could receive for what we have. If anybody would like to see the full report, I can show it to them, but it's pretty lengthy. It breaks down different areas, training, how many fire hydrants we have to serve and things like that. So it's very comprehensive. The second audit was called a 2% dues audit. Municipalities through their fire districts they're given back 2% of insurance payments that are made within the state that come back as payments through this process. So they do audit the process just to make sure that we are still eligible to receive the 2%. I would assume, Renee, at some point there will be somebody reaching out to you from the fire district about exactly how much that was. They didn't have the amount ready for us at the meeting, but that was the crux or the bulk of the meeting.
Excellent. Wonderful. Any other committees, boards, or commissions that weren't included? All right, seeing none, let's move on to business item number 1, the appointment of the Waunakee Ad Hoc Sustainability Members Committee for the 2024 to 2026 term, and this is on page 13 of your agenda. Move to that. So do we have can we put up the list of candidates?
I can share that.
All right, thank you. We had a great response application wise. We have a lot of very talented and interested people across the community who are interested in seeing sustainability move forward as a topic. The folks that you see here all represent a variety of educational backgrounds, a variety of professions, a variety of ages, and a fair cross-section of the community in terms of neighborhoods. So we're putting forward for names Julie Baldwin, Carly Eben Eaton, David Patrick Ross, Tom Wilson, Michael Weber, and Linda Ashmore as our resident members, Kylie Griffin and Isaac Drangsveit as our student members, and trustee members Nyla Fry, Joe Zitzelsberger, and myself. And so this will have no budget impact. The committee will meet on the third Wednesday of the month. We're going to work around the Community Development Authority and hopefully try to make some efficiencies with regards to staff time on that month. So the first meeting then will be the third Wednesday of April. So any questions on this or comments?
I guess just a comment, just applaud the applicants and the quality of the applicants that were received in a fairly short amount of time after being announced.
I'm excited that this is kicking off and I think everyone is a great fit. And I'll move to approve the Sustainable Waunakee Ad Hoc Committee appointments as recommended by Village President.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So congratulations to those of you who applied and worked on it. And Isaac, I see you're in the audience. We'll look forward to working with you on this. Thank you very much for bringing this up. Right, next item on the agenda. Go back up to my agenda here. Is discuss and take action on bids for the Centennial Park Playscape, page 14 of your packet. And Sue, that's to you.
Thank you so much. So work is always good, but there are some times when work is better. And I just have to say this is one of them. This has got to be one of the best projects that I have worked on in a really long time. And I am very excited to be here tonight to have you help us make a few last final decisions about how to make the Centennial Park Playscape project a reality. It is the result of months of lots of conversations with neighbors, with parents, school district staff, with the park committee, and we're finally there. And it's really getting it's very real. When I came in tonight, I gave you each a copy of the latest activity guide. If you turn to the back cover, you can see some of the images that are the images of the equipment that's coming our way. So we are all very excited to be able to play later this summer. So this project has been a little bit unusual in a couple different ways. And one of them is rather than bidding out the entire project for public bidding, it was actually split into three pieces. The first two pieces included the selection of vendors for both the playground equipment and the splash pad equipment. And we started there because we needed to know what we were going to install before our consultants could design the project to put the construction bid together. So the park committee selected those two vendors, Gerber Leisure Products and Vortex Playground and Splash Pads. And we worked with our consulting team and their initial budgets to work through exactly what equipment we were going to add into this project. And that equipment was purchased through a cooperative purchasing system. So we met all of the public bidding requirements. Renee and I have been working on that together to make sure we chose a vendor, that we followed all of those municipal purchasing rules. So the last piece is what we have before you tonight, and that is the actual public bids for the construction of the project. We opened bids on March 21st. We were very pleased to have 4 general contractors respond to our bid. And one of the things that you look at when public bids come in, first of all, is
are they close to the estimates that our consulting engineers gave us? So are we close to what they told us this should cost us? And then also comparatively, when you look across the board from one bidder to the other, are those bids gathered in a grouping? There's not somebody who's really low or somebody who's really high. We were very pleased with the outcome of the bids. 4 very responsive bidders. 2 of them in particular, though, were substantially lower than the other 2. So that's where we're going to spend our energy here tonight in making some last decisions. But both of those bidders, one was the base bid, was a little bit lower than our engineer's estimate, and one was just a little bit higher. So really, again, right on target. A couple things about this bid package. So there was the base bid, and then there were, in essence, 3 alternates that were included. And many times, alternates are put into a project for a lot of reasons, but mainly if you find yourself in a situation where you can't afford the whole project, sometimes we peel aside a couple pieces to say, if money is tight, perhaps we could do without one or another of these. Again, 3 alternates. I'm going to describe those briefly to you. The first one, the largest one, is a changing structure. So one of the things that we talked about was the idea of adding not only the Centennial Park shelter restrooms will be close to this project, but in many new playscape projects like this, we have seen outside changing areas. The best way that I can describe it is think of a changing room in the Kohl's department store. So it is enclosed, it's open air on the bottom and on top, so the air can flow through, but you can go in there privately, change. Great for parents who want to help their children change into a suit before they come. We've also talked about many of the families that have kids with disabilities that might also need to be able to attend to their needs. So a 3-stall changing area. We did know in advance that this was going to be kind of a high dollar item. So that is why we put that one as an alternate. On the bid documents, there are 3 items that relate to that changing area. That is option A2, which is the base course. Option A3, which is the concrete pavement pad that this changing structure would sit on, and then A4, which is the changing structure itself. A second alternate is the catenary lighting. It's a fancy word for the twinkle lights that Todd likes to talk about. They are intended to be off of the south end of the main picnic shelter. Think of those big old-fashioned glass bulb lights that are strung above a seating area that really provide a beautiful spot to sit in the evening, really creating a bit of place to be enjoy the park as a whole. So that is alternate option A1, catenary lighting. And then the last one, A5, is a little bit interesting. It's shade structure installation. We had originally intended on putting the structures themselves and the installation as an alternate, but leaving the base for those shade structures in the main bid, because the footing for those shade structures needs to be underground. And if we were ever going to put them in, that underground piece had to go in right from the beginning. It was not something we could come back to. When we worked through the purchasing process with Vortex and the splash pad piece, it turned out that they were able to provide the structures themselves as a part of their bid. And we came in substantially under budget from where we thought we were going to be. So really, in the contract, we're putting the base in. In the Vortex contract, we've actually already bought the shade structures. And so now we just need to figure out how we're going to pay to have them installed. And I can talk about that when we get a little bit further. So those last two contractors happens to be Parisi Construction and Joe Daniels Construction are the two lowest bidders. Both of them we have extensive experience with. Very, very pleased to have either one of them as our partner on this project. So there is no reason to make a choice based on contractor name. They are both great options for our project. But their bids are so close that who the low bidder is going to be is going to depend on a decision that we hope you'll help us make. And that is really starting with that changing structure. We did have quite a conversation about those changing structures at the park committee level. We're interested in the board here tonight to kind of continue that conversation and let us know how you feel about that. We are looking at if you are a yes on the changing structure, it is a cost of approximately $65,000. So Sam, maybe you want to pick up, if you would, that conversation from the park
Yeah.
committee.
So at least among the three of us that are here that are on the park committee, we were pretty much in agreement that the changing structure was a must for the facility to open. That's for a number of reasons, obviously, access in the restrooms, just the fact that the hexagonal shape of that shelter means that many, if there's a picnic or something, people are putting their Nescos and other food items inside. Events like the senior picnic come to mind where, they like to have the line through the back, right where the restrooms are. And we want this facility to remain obviously open when the shelter is being used. So at least for me, the changing structure is a must for the facility to open.
Yeah, no, I agree with Sam. The other item that we talked about in regards to the changing structure is just due to the nature of what we're trying to provide the experience for both the parents and the children, especially with the accessible portion of the park, is having the option to have that splash pad, whether you have even numbers, multiple children or even, like older children that you need to try to help. It seems like such of a amenity that's almost, you almost have to have it, I feel like, with it.
All right.
And I would also say in regard to the shade structures, because there was some discussion at the committee about potentially waiting on the installation of those. But the fact is all the trees that are located in proximity to where the shade structures would go are to the north of the splash pad or the playground. So they're not actually going to provide any shade at all to those areas.
All right. More presentation, or are you ready for us to discuss?
No more presentation at this point. So I would say discuss and then I'll jump in and then help you direct you to where we would end up based on what you have to say.
Sounds good. All right. I would agree from an accessibility standpoint, and I'll go first on this, that those changing structures sound like they're going to be really important to making the facility accessible to people who might need help, or to family members who are with children or other family members of the opposite gender in particular. Do we have an all gender bathroom there or a family bathroom in that shelter?
We do not.
Okay. Okay. So those become really critical then for those functions.
Super helpful.
All right. What questions do we have? Nyla, would you like to start?
I would just like to make the comment that I agree a changing structure is necessary for functionality. I've taken children to pools, and we've always changed to go home, and to go home all soaking wet, it is not comfortable. And as far as children with special needs, it's almost a must. You may have someone come in a wheelchair and their needs, we may not even know what they are, but a changing area will come in handy. That's my thoughts on that.
Robert?
So also at park committee, that was a stalwart on, we need to have the changing area. It's having a 7-year-old who does swimming. It's infinitely better when we can change in the dedicated changing rooms at the pool as opposed to having to go in the bathroom and then wiggle around people going in to go to the bathroom and things like that. So I think it's a necessary, structure for it. I will say that if there was one area that we needed to cut, I was fine with the catenary lighting going, but I'm actually all in on the shade structure because as a parent who goes to parks quite frequently, We don't like sitting out in the sun as much as our daughter does, so we will flee to the closest shade that we can while we're keeping an eye on her. So it's, I guarantee you parents will use it and they'll fight for that space if it's out there.
Joe?
In general, I think all of the alternatives are probably good things. The couple of questions that I have, first one is regarding the lighting. There is and maybe this is irrelevant given where we'll probably end up, but there's a huge difference in the bid on that. Do we have any idea why?
You know, that is the mystery of public bidding,
Sure.
that it's really hard to guess why one contractor bids something immensely different than another. You'll also see that in the installation of the shade structures,
Mhm.
from one bidder to the other. There's really no way to tell where, maybe they got to the end of the list and we're in a hurry. I don't know.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a difference in the materials or anything. I'm not sure exactly what was spec'd on the bid, but
I think the best way to take a peek and see if there was some confusion is to look across the board. And so the sheet in your packet where it shows all 4 bidders, there's one bidder that's much lower. I don't know why, but the other 3 were really right on target. And so I don't feel like there was any confusion in the bid documents.
okay. And then the other question that I have, kind of around the changing space, there's a picture, it's page 6 of this section, or looks like page 19 of the entire packet, if we can throw that one up at all. But there's a picture on there and it shows what I'm assuming is a changing area. But that doesn't really appear like a $60,000 changing area to me.
So we do have Blake Tyson with us online, and he is prepared to show some other graphics. Todd, if you want to, Blake, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you. Perfect. You're ready to be able to share. Can you provide that for us, please?
On its way.
Welcome, by the way.
Hello. Nice job on the description, Sue. Thank you. You did everything very clearly. So here's a rendering of what that changing structure might look like. And the colors haven't been finalized, but essentially you have a monoslope roof line here with the 3 changing stalls. The doors swing out. There's a bench inside each of the changing areas. As Sue explained, it is open air at the bottom and open air at the top for air circulation and natural lighting. Each of the doors would have a latch on it, of course, from the inside, and a hook to hang a clothes bag, purse, whatever you may need. So that's an example of what it would look like. It would be a metal roof, metal structure. So everything is very robust, vandal resistant, etc. And again, we can choose the colors to fit in with the palette of the rest of the project. So here's an example of a very similar project or changing structure actually in the Sun Prairie project we did a few years ago. This was during construction, so they hadn't put the roof on yet or the doors, but you can see how it actually looks very much like the rendering. And it's extremely functional. People have had very good response to it. So it would look very much in keeping with this example.
And I guess I would add, Joe, I don't disagree. It's a dollar amount for sure. What I do feel good about is 6 months ago when we talked about this particular piece of the project with Blake and Katie, they had done some work with some consultants and they told us they thought it was going to be $85,000. So when it came in at $65,000, still sticker shock, but much better than anticipated. So I felt better about that.
Agreed. I will say the structure that was shown up here is far
Better.
more robust than what it appears on the picture that I was looking at. So that definitely makes me feel a lot better. Do we have measurements on that? I'm thinking from any sort of an accessibility standpoint, making sure that those doors are large enough.
Oh, for
et cetera,
sure.
et cetera.
We do, and they were included in detail in the bid specs, and they are definitely meeting all of the accessibility guidelines. For sure.
Excellent. Okay, that's all I've got.
Blake, while you're here, can you also show them some examples of the catenary lighting?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let me screen share again. So I think my favorite example is a project we actually completed in Menominee Falls a few years ago, and this is in their village park, so their main plaza by the new restroom. And this is very much very similar to what we envision the south side of the pavilion to be for your setting. So, you know, all the lighting is suspended by stainless steel aircraft cable, so very strong material, so you're not going to rip it down. And the style of the light, we had initially spec'd a clear globe, but it could be any number of or any type of fixture. But we think this is a very nice aesthetic for that setting, and you know, it can be dimmed. So if we wanted it at a low level, this was a shot that was really focusing on the lighting, so it looks very bright, but it can be dimmed down to be a very low level aesthetic.
And those cost estimates don't just include the strings of the lights. They include the poles that support them, the cables
Correct.
that support them. So
Yep.
it's more than just a lot of money for 3 strings of lights.
Right.
Can I
Yep,
ask
go
one more?
ahead. Yeah, of course.
I'm curious about the lifespan of the lights. Obviously, the cables will be there, but the lights will have to be replaced at some point.
Yeah, so all of the fixtures themselves are LED. So in terms of relamping them, they're going to outlast any traditional light that we would, you know, normally see in our house or a commercial setting. If someone were to get up and try and cut one of the cables, obviously that's going to be a vandalism issue you have to deal with. But I forget the number of hours they projected, but it's like 40,000 lumen hours or something ridiculous, you know, that will never exceed. So they should be there for quite a long time, I guess is my message.
There's no need to take them down in the winter or anything like that.
No.
They're stay.
No.
Okay.
It's where we're going to have hot chocolate when we're skating.
Nice.
Yes, Nyla. Oh, your mic, Nyla.
Back to the changing area, it's metals, so how hot is it going to get in there?
So it is all powder coated metal framework and roof, but the nice thing is you have the ventilation underneath and above. So you're always going to have airflow coming through the space. We have not heard any comments about it being an uncomfortable space from other projects.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Erin.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see more of the designs and the specs. I think those lights are great, and my parents' Costco ones last through a few winters, so I feel like those might even be a little sturdier. But I think in particular, I think those create a great sense of place, and hopefully with this new amenity for the village, like connecting people to it in different parts of the day. Reiterate everyone's comments on the importance of the changing structure. I'm glad to hear that it's handicap accessible and will actually fit those measurements. And I think if we're going to do this, like we might as well do this right. And I'm in favor of all 3 alternates. I think they're all not necessarily luxuries, but really appropriate parts of this project.
All right. Any other comments from our parks? No.
No.
Oh, it's a
Kristen, I
fantastic
would
project.
then ask that we look at the next page of the document, because I want to be this, again, this was a bit of an unusual project in that it had a lot of moving parts. And so I wanted to be really clear to the board on all of the costs of putting this project together. So that's the next page in your packet. This example that I put in your packet was just for illustration purposes, assuming you accepted all alternates. It does include all of the planning costs that we incurred last year to bring this project to fruition. It also includes the cost of construction management services. That is actually the next item on the agenda. And it also includes a 15% construction contingency. So you can see on that next page, our total project costs are a maximum of $1,970,000. been working really closely with Renee on how to cover the costs of this project. And there are a lot of different places, just like the project was complicated on the expense end, it's complicated on the revenue end as well. But we are feeling really comfortable that the funding is there to cover the cost. It's a variety of different options. One of them is debt. One of them is impact fees. And that is actually a piece that we're feeling really good about because we've been collecting those fees and hadn't to this date found a substantial way to use those appropriately. And so this is a really nice project to make use of those funds. There was some playground equipment debt in the budget, if you remember that. So that's going to be included in this. There's private fundraising, and we're feeling just really positive about that. As of today, we've had 27 different people step up and be partners in the fundraising for this project with just over $171,000 already raised. And almost every other day, more money comes in. And so we're very pleased with that. And we definitely want people to know that we are still helping to raise money to bring this project to the village. We had some savings from some projects that we completed last year. So Bill and I are always working together to make sure we spend your money wisely. And so we did have a carryover for some 2023 projects. We have been, the village board has been for many years now, setting aside as a part of the tax levy, capital funds in a pay-go account. So $70,000 a year has been put into a pay-go fund. We, up to this point, haven't spent any of that. And so we've been setting it aside for a big project, and we feel like here we are. And then we also had some non-lapsing donations that needed a home. And so lots of different sources coming in, but we're feeling really positive that there is ample funding to make sure we cover all of the costs.
And say not to forget the public donations that we received that were substantial and,
I said that, 171,000.
oh, sorry.
I was mesmerizing you, you missed it.
I was just dreaming of all my twinkle lights.
So not including debt financing, how much would you estimate, Renee, that we have? And how much do we have to go? I'm totally putting you on the spot with what might be an unexpected question.
I think I don't have that in front of me. So wait,
Ask the question
yeah,
again.
ask the question again.
I'll be able
because
to
I was a
answer
little
it.
confused.
How much, if we take out debt, how much do we have right now to pay towards it? What, kind of what's our gap, in other words?
So 1,500,000.
Okay. Okay.
So we have in my chicken scratching put $500,000 of debt service, splash pad debt service towards this project.
Okay.
And then 150 of the playground.
Okay. Okay. All right. Other questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
two more, kind of going back to the other stuff, the colors of the changing area. Are we still looking at the dark colors? Because if we went with light colors, the temperature thing would probably negate itself.
Yeah, it's a good comment. So those renderings were early on, and I think now that we have our established color palette with our play equipment, our concrete plane, we're going to want to revisit that to make sure it's harmonious. So yeah, I think, you know, a lighter tan or brown is appropriate instead of the grays and greens.
Okay. And then another question, as far as the lighting goes, I assume it's not particularly compliant with the dark sky stuff.
You know, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about how we're going to manage those lights, but in all of our other park settings, we usually have lights only, first of all, on a timer to make sure that they don't burn all night long. And then quite frequently also on an activation system. So if no one is enjoying the park, there are no lights on, and you push some kind of a timer so they're only happening when people are using it. And so we do everything that we can to reduce extra light when we don't need it.
Is the scheduling and all that sort of thing, is that built into this, or is that stuff that you've already got, or how How would that be handled?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
And Sue, I think it'd be worth following up with Lauren on our
Absolutely.
night sky ordinance.
Yep.
We want to install something that violates our own
For
code
sure.
on that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, and we
Yeah.
take it seriously for good reasons. so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Good point.
Nyla.
I have a question about the water, equipment itself. Is it set up so that if a user comes to use it, that they push a button and it starts? So,
Exactly.
so then the water shuts off if it's not in use? Okay.
Yes, and actually, if you look closely at the picture, there's actually two sections of the splash pad that are operated separately. So kind of a toddler-based area and a bigger kid area. And so they're actually independent as well. So if no one is at the splash pad, no water will be running. And when you come and you want to play, you have to push the button and then it runs on a timer and then you have to re-engage. And it's amazing how quickly kids figure that out.
Okay,
And that
thank-
becomes actually part of the fun.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none,
Oh, I was going to make a motion.
please.
Motion to accept the bid for Parisi Construction for the Centennial Park Placegate project inclusive of all alternates.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Sue. Next up, we have another item.
Do we-
Construction management.
Do we need to make a motion on the CM part of it?
That's where she's going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's all right. That's all right. And I believe that's page 20. Yeah, 20 of your packet. Thank you, Sam.
Yep, so this item is a follow-up to what we just approved. This is construction management services to have Blake and Katie continue their fine work with us in making sure that the project runs smoothly and that we're ready to play by the end of the summer.
Any discussion on this item? Anybody have any questions?
Kristen, if I can,
Yes,
just one
please.
thing, and really to Sue as a compliment, she's put a great deal of energy, interest, time, passion into this. So Blake has as well, for that matter. So to both, but especially Sue, well done.
Mm.
It's a great mark
Thank
to
you.
make on in the community here.
It's been a lot of fun.
I think we're all really excited to have this project underway and open.
Todd says we can dump the bucket on his head.
Can we? All
It really isn't a
right.
bucket though, so that isn't gonna really work.
Right. We're holding him to that. Yeah,
I do like that as an opening.
I do.
kind of
Yeah.
concept. Forget the ribbon cutting.
Yeah. Bucket dumping. So, I love it. I love it. All right. So no discussion or question on this item. So seeing none, I will, oh, you have one.
No,
Oh,
no.
go ahead. I'll move to approve the construction management contract with Parkitecture and Planning supporting the Centennial Park Playscape construction project for a total cost of $19,232.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Thanks very much. Let me know when I should have my shovel ready so I can come and help dig and build. So, yeah. All right, next item on the agenda is a discussion take action on the daycare forum. And so I will pass this over to you, Todd.
And I'm happy to quickly pass it back. Well, in general, because this is, opens up opportunity for discussion with the board, sort of in reaction to what was, I thought, a pretty interesting, engaging conversation that was had at our house not that long ago. I was glad to attend for part of that as well. So this is presented on the agenda in part because Trustee McPherson presented to me a proposal that's been included in your packet for the board to consider and chew on. And Kristen's, President Runge's interest in having this discussion brought forward for good deliberation amongst the board for our perspective and addressing the needs of early childhood in the community. So, and we as staff are ready to help further research as needed based on what the board desires.
Thank you. And Robert, before you, I think you're going to want to present your proposal on that, but before we do that, I just did want to open up the floor. A number of us were able to attend the childcare forum, and thank you very much, Heather, for organizing, and everyone that did attend. I think it was really important for us to be there and to hear what is happening with our childcare services in the village, not only from the perspective of you're crucial in helping raise the children of the community, but also this is a crucial support for our workforce and our community as a whole. So before we get to your proposal, I just wanted to open up the floor for those of us who are able to be there to make any comments or share any kind of insights that we gained from that night. Perhaps nobody has any. Yeah, I know. We'll look at Nyla and Sam and Joe. Yeah. Do you have any comments to make about? No.
No, I think it was a fantastic discussion that night. And there's a lot of good to come yet.
I think it was a good discussion. Representative from WEAC was there. Alex George was there, Diane Hesselbein. I think we had a very good discussion, and it was, I think, eye-opening for some, and it really just, we said the things that I already know because I have been a childcare provider for 46 years. And it was good for the community to come together and to express, for childcare providers to express their needs and the needs of parents, because there were parents there. And I was thrilled to see as many trustees that were there represented. It was a good night, and I hope the conversation goes on.
Yeah. Sam, did you have any observations?
No, I just want to hear what he says about the funding proposal.
All right. All right. And I'll say beyond the funding proposal, one of the things that a couple of us have talked about informally is setting up a childcare roundtable that meets quarterly, not a committee, but just a gathering and a convening of childcare providers so that we're kind of in constant communication about what our childcare providers need over the long term and not just in terms of shorter term proposals that we might be entertaining. Again, it's just a crucial part of our community. So what we can do to support you. Yeah, let us do that. Yeah. All right, Robert, I think we might be ready for you.
Okay. So, and also I was also in attendance. I'm recent user of childcare services myself, so fully understand the burden that it is on family members. And I would spend way more time than my wife would have preferred talking to our providers, facilities owner after I pick up my daughter, so much to the point that I was helping them close up at the end of the day because I was trying to work through ideas with them. So when we were in one of the breakout sessions at the event, I happened to be in the session with State Senator Hesselbein, and she kind of put a little challenge out there of, well, you know, you could spend ARPA funds on this. And it was a little bit of a throwaway, but then two other trustees were in the room and they started staring at me and said, I don't know, he's the money guy, let him think of something. So I took that, I took that with me. I care a lot about this topic, and I would like to see, you know, something that we could do for it. When I speak with providers, 9 times out of 10, the thing I hear from them is, we just need more, we need more money. We know from the WEAC presentation, it's a failed, you know, economically it's failed. It has recovered very unequally in the pandemic. We've watched the cost of everything go up, which I know impacts the providers directly. Labor costs are up. They're still paying, you know, for the things that basically take care of our children. And so we know that that the struggle then is how much can they raise the cost to the parents before the parents are literally priced out of childcare, which, as we know, has a net negative effect, not just because people can't get childcare, but then people can't go to work. People can't afford to live within the village, to be honest. So there are a lot of people who are heavily reliant on, you know, these childcare services. And I would say that even beyond that, we are employers that have people that come in from other areas. They sometimes put their children in for childcare within the village while they're working here, so that, you know, they can pick them up on the way out. So it's really a vital service for the village. So one of the main things that ARPA passage explicitly states is they actually say that childcare is a good use for ARPA funds. So what I'm proposing here, it aligns pretty closely to what the federal government had suggested would be a valid use for ARPA funds would be. Now, rather than reinvent the wheel, because I am definitely not a DCF employee, and I don't have that knowledge base, but What they did have out there as a program, if you're not aware of it, it was called childcare counts. It still exists. They're coming close to the end of the program because if you maybe have followed the news a little bit, the governor had asked that the state legislator look at continuing the program. They declined to do so. So it is going to expire. So my proposal is not going to be a be all end all solution to the problems of the village facing. This is, and I'll be quite frank, it's intended to be a little bit of a Band-Aid to try and extend out the childcare accounts funding just for a little bit. While I'm asking for $85,000 from our remaining funds, when I did the math behind it, if every provider came in and asked for it, we would be making some choices, to be honest, even out of that 85,000. If there was less providers, we could look at offering a lump sum payment of the equivalent of 2 or 3 months of childcare accounts. So there's a formula for this that the state already has. So we know what we can follow. And then as far as for impact upon the village, what I would be looking for is a one-time payment, which would require following what childcare accounts already ask for from the providers, which is they have to provide proof of their child counts on the day that we would choose. They would also have to provide proof that they actually have the employees that they're paying. So we would expect that information to be able to be held for 5 years, just like childcare accounts. So from an audit perspective, it would be no different than what the state is already requiring. So theoretically, this would be a low friction program for both village staff and for the providers within the village that are asking for it. Another item that I would point out in here is that this is based off of those providers that are licensed family and licensed group facility. So that there's a distinction between the two as to how many children that they can have on site based off if they're licensed family or licensed facility, I'm sorry, group. And so the total based off of what DCF has available when I wrote this is that there's potentially 20 providers total within the village. Some obviously are provide more than others. So we do have some larger ones out there that would do it, but this does not include, and I was very clear in this with the sheet I put together, would not include any facility, unfortunately, in Westport. That would be, in my opinion, inappropriate for us to send them money. So, because I know that some people would say, I can think of 2 immediately that are in Westport, and the answer is they should ask Westport. So there are the reason that this is in draft format, the reason I wanted feedback from the board is because there's a lot of questions here as to, there's some options in place. We could say that we don't want to pay for Youngstar, highly Youngstar rated facilities because they do get an incentive if they have a higher Youngstar rating in the childcare accounts program. We can set the date of when we want this to occur. We could set it to line up with when the next round of funding expires from childcare accounts, for example. We don't have to give them the money now. And then if you'll see within the appendix, and I'm not going to go through the entire appendix, this is pretty much a very close one-to-one copy of the DCF's program. So I did not get creative in any area in here outside of, I did shorten some of these areas to say that it's a count day and an application period as opposed to a month-to-month rolling program. That's how the DCF has their program currently set up. It also states in there what they can use the funds for, what they cannot use the funds for. We would hold them to the same standard that the state does as for what the programs, is intended to be used for. So it's pretty clear, in my opinion, what they can use the funds for and what they cannot use the funds for. But again, if they're already in the child care accounts program, this should all be familiar to them.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert. Before we ask questions ourselves, Todd, can I ask you, do you have a staff perspective or a staff opinion that you could provide?
Well, a couple initial thoughts related just to the balance of ARPA dollars that we have left. There is no requirement for the board or the village to validate any way in which we use it. Early on in the ARPA allocation, there were some requirements. Renee did a great job accounting for those and doing the reporting we needed. But over the time as allocation and the timing has moved on and feds have changed programming requirements, there is zero requirement for us to justify the purposeful use one way or another, zero. No need to validate it. So maybe one thought would be if there is any level of room for refinement in the program that Robert put together, it would be in fact to remove elements of rigor. Because frankly, as far as now maybe it's of concern to you, it would be concern to you as a board, but as far as the feds are concerned, we can do with those remaining dollars as we wish. I think the only other thing I want to share, and Robert, you and I talked about this back mid-March. I did get an email. I just want to let you know from another provider, Leap Academy in Waunakee. Maria Fitzgibbon is the owner of that facility. And she reached out to me about a 501c3 that she's in the process of forming. Robert and Maria had a conversation, maybe a couple of conversations, but she did make an ask for ARPA dollars for what she's calling the Waunakee Early Childhood Fund to support continuing efforts post-COVID. I'm reading from her email here. To support and improve early childhood in our village. She has a vision and mission laid out in a small board, and I believe they may have met once already in March. And she asked whether the village has ARPA dollars that could support as seed money to cover initial expenses to form and file a nonprofit for this purpose. I did give her an initial response. I want to let you know what that was. It was, well, we have supported, let's say, WNC and the food pantry, which are well established with programs in place, and every dollar that we give to them, it's pretty clear how that was going to be used and how specifically it was going to support the community. You're sort of in the still formative stage. It might be a challenging ask to the board, but I don't want my comment to her in that daycare has been brought up as an issue area, an area of interest for the board. I don't want my comment to limit her request to be before you as well. There's some level of relation. So I really just wanted to let you know about that.
And if I can, we did have additional conversation, and she did respond after looking at the proposal, and she did state that just, even with that conversation, she was still supportive of the proposal as it was put forth. So knowing that those ARPA funds would be set aside for this purpose, she was still, I have the email here, that she said that it looks great, were her words. So.
And I haven't had a follow-up with her like you did. So I appreciate that. I think that did you have any others just related to the balance that we have at this point? I would also say that you as a board you're not, let me say, not yet in a scramble scenario. So you do have the luxury of some time still. It is the last day of this calendar year. I'll let you talk to that, Renee.
That is correct. But I guess I don't want us to be in that position where we're trying to figure it out, even in the last month or two of the year, just because it's an extremely busy time for all of us with budget, taxes and things. So, I don't want us to wait till the bitter end, though we technically can.
We're glad you're talking about it now. I'll also add, we received 1.47 million from the federal government. So I want to thank the board. You've made good decisions with these dollars. The list was in your packet. Job well done. The first process, maybe not all of you were on the board at the time, but we worked with staff we had a litany of projects, and the board worked together to prioritize those in order. Some things fell off the list as the board didn't find worthy use. Others were right at the top and others were in the middle. And we worked through that list. And as we've approached this end, I'm pretty pleased. And I give kudos to the board and the departments, all of whom worked together to use the vast majority of these dollars. All right.
Was there an overriding philosophy in how the dollars were allocated?
Not necessarily, except that the request was made by the board to the staff to bring forward potential projects, but challenge areas, opportunity areas. And then the philosophy from there was to leave it in the hands of the board to make decisions on that use. As I said early on, we had some limitations and challenges with validating the uses. In fact, the first dollars that we gave to WNC in the food pantry, though that was tricky. There were not an audit, but not a,
Well, I had to, and they just finished spending, so I've just finished validating. So our contracts with them as subrecipients were very detailed and, you know, they had to validate every dollar. Again, at the beginning, the federal government was, I don't want to say stricter, but they did kind of open it up for people such as ourselves. We are considered, all of our dollars are in the revenue lost category. So that's what gives us the flexibility to really make our own decisions on how we spend it and not have to stick with the strict guidelines that some people have to adhere to for, you know, when they got $50 million or so.
So if we would go forward with this, could we relax some of those rules around validating? And I'm just thinking in terms of the number of providers we have and from an accounting perspective, how to make it as easy as possible if we'd go forward with this.
In terms of what they can spend it on and proving that out.
Yeah.
I would say we could relax that a bit. I mean, Robert, did you?
I was gonna wait till you finish.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I don't think we'd have to be, because again, this program run at the county level, right? It was Dane County that did this or
State.
the state. So again, they were doing it under a different category, not the revenue loss like we are. So they did have to validate it in such a way, and we wouldn't have to probably be that strict.
So if I
Yeah.
may, the reason that I did leave that in there, and I agree with you that we don't need to be that strict. It says, a lot of this is self-certifying
Mhm.
by the provider. It's, if I'm correct here, they're not, it's only just, it's kind of a, we reserve the right if we suspect that you did something wrong, more or less, but otherwise they're self-certifying that they're using these funds in the correct manner. So I'm not implying that we would go and conduct an audit, to be honest, but I do think a little bit, since it is public funds, ultimately, there should be some sort of guardrails just to say this is what you should be spending it on. I realize now we're talking in open session if I say we're not really going to come check it, but honestly, I think we should reserve the right, just because if somebody says, much like, I'll give a good example with PPP. I mean,
Mhm.
that was said on a good word, and then it turns out some people would go to the internet and upload videos of them buying Bentleys with their PPP funds, and it turns out that was fraud. So I think that, you know, if we wanted to avoid just criticism, like just saying that, I think that it's not intrusive to just say at the time of that we're doing the calculation, that we just say, what is your count on this day? And then can you prove that you have these employees? And then that's it. I mean, I'm in full agreement. I didn't envision that we would be saying, now send us the receipts that you applied the funds in this way, because they are self-certifying this.
Okay. I that was not clear when I read it. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
that
wow.
was same
Yeah.
for me.
Oh, it's buried in there. It just says that, like, there's a lot of, it's like, I will not do this. I will not do that and things like that. But it doesn't say, and then I will send you proof that I didn't. It just says that I will not do
Got
these
it.
things.
Okay, that's helpful.
All right. So thank you for letting me open the questions, guys. Nyla, you had a question.
Well, I have a lot more than a question. First of all, I would like to make a statement. I have been doing childcare for 46 years in Waunakee. I began in group daycare. I became licensed family daycare. I am now unregulated daycare. I take care of no more than 3 children at a time, which is within the state laws. I feel that I can offer a lot of information and knowledge about childcare to the board and to the village. And I would also like to make a statement that in no way could any of these funds benefit my facility. And I think that's important for you, everyone to know. First of all, when looking at this, and I would also like to say that many, many years ago, I was a co-organizer of We Care for Kids. And what we did, we organized educational programs and events for all providers, whether they were licensed, certified, regulated, unregulated. We just wanted to get the education out there. So I know a few things about childcare in general. And one of those things is I do realize that there are other forms of childcare in the state other than licensed regulated childcare. There is certified childcare in the state of Wisconsin, which allows, and it's the certification happens through 4 Cs of Dane County. And this allows a provider to take care of up to 3 children in their home. And it is regulated, and they have much of the same documentation as a licensed provider. They may not have all the same requirements, but the daycare is inspected and looked at on a regular basis. So I called 4 Cs of Dane County to find out, to ask a few questions, because it's been many, many years since I've worked or asked questions from any regulated care, and asked how many certified daycares do we have in Waunakee at this time? And they said 2. So my question, what I'm wondering is could we possibly, if we go this route and propose these funds, could we include the certified care in that? Okay, now, when I look at page 29, it all sounds really good, but as far as allowable use of funds, program A. But when we're talking about a very limited amount of funding, and one of the things that I was hearing when I went to the meeting at Art House Playhouse was what the daycare workers were receiving, what their needs are. And so I would really rather focus on raising payment wages for the workers. And when I look at operating expenses, et cetera, to remain open, including but not limited to mortgage payments, or the expenses related to mitigating the risk of COVID-19, those are all good things, but with the limited funds, I don't know how much could be done. And as what was stated a short time ago, is that there were funds already out there to do a lot of this. So my thought is to prioritize wages for workers. And then I have a couple more comments. On page 31, it says under restrictions, it says a high-level administration staff for group providers may receive no more than 2 times their per staff amount. To me, that seems high. Not that anyone in childcare makes a lot of money, but the administration usually receives more to begin with than most of the staff. So for them to receive no more than 2 times what the rest of the staff receives, I just feel makes it so that, how do I say this? The lower people on the lower part of the totem pole make the least, and they're the ones that perhaps their wages should be brought up the most. That's my way of explaining that. And then one other thing, I think Robert kind of covered a lot of it. But whenever I work on committee, such as Housing Task Force, et cetera, the question always comes up, how is this program going to be looked after? How is it going to be staffed? How is it going to be monitored? What will the cost of doing this be? So that's a question I'm asking also, even though Robert kind of answered it. That's always a concern whenever you're working with a program. So thank you.
Right. Thanks, Nyla.
Can
Joe.
I
Oh, go
answer
ahead.
really quick? You had talked about funds for the employees. That's program B. That is explicitly for employee payments. So
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm saying is I would rather see us focus on that than the other types of things.
okay, so for example, you would say I'm with the option of paying more for the higher Young Star rating. That would be something that you find amiable if we had to start choosing what to keep and not to keep. Got you. I would say that the other part of it just is just for two comments. One is this is intended to be a supplement, not a replacement. So you're right, it's not a lot of money per provider. But it is intended to be a supplement. And then the other part is if they are, we do state that we are okay with them using it to increase their existing compensation, but obviously they're gonna have to decide when they know the money's out if they can continue to pay that. So I thank you for the feedback.
Joe?
Going down that road of when the money's out, sort of what do you do? I absolutely agree. This is a Band-Aid. It's not the long-term solution. If we go forward with this, I think it's really important that we also look at what is that long-term solution, and is it anything that this board can do? Or do we need to put pressure on those at the state capitol or whatever it might be? So just that sort of statement. Regarding what's actually in here, there were just a couple of things that I looked at. On the main resolution, there's a part where it says the maximum amount set aside shall be $85,000. In the event that that amount is actually more than what is needed, and I think that's probably a scenario that's unlikely, but if that's the case and we choose 85,000 here, if we only spend 60, what happens to that other 25? Can we, how do we
I
handle that
think
later?
that the
in the year?
board could choose to use it for something else, or in the worst case scenario, I mean, we're not going to be in a position where we're gonna have to give any money back. If I have to, if we're down to the last day, I will shuffle money in the budget to make sure we spend this money first. So, but obviously the preference would be if there was leftover money that the board would choose what they wanted to spend it on.
Okay.
That's my thought.
There's a piece in here where it talks about the application period, but I didn't really find anything that kind of defines what that might be. I'm assuming,
It's actually the first
Is it-
definition under definition.
did
of
I miss
service.
it?
Yeah,
I just
it's
walked right
just
over it.
defined as the time frame
Oh,
during
sure
which
enough.
providers can apply for funds from the
Okay.
program.
But there's not a specific date that applies to that at this point. It's something that, do we need to set?
That would be
or-
something that we would want to look at, because that's why I wrote in the resolution, there's placeholders that say date in
Yep.
there, because it was going to be largely based off of
Okay,
if the village wished to board wished to take action, when did we do it? And then did we potentially want to line it up with,
yeah,
the end of a program or something like that?
okay. Yeah, makes good sense. And then the only other thing that I had seen in here, in the resolution under number 4, I think that was where it talks about paid as a lump sum for an equivalent of X months. In my head, I'm thinking lump sum is one payment, and then for an equivalent of X months, kind of feels like monthly payments. What's the actual goal there?
That's fair. There's also an Excel sheet that's not in this that I apologize for it not being in there. But basically, if we have, based off of providers that apply, to your point about what if we don't use the funds, it was, I set it up so that as you entered in information, it would tell you how much that we're utilizing across the entire fund, so that if we could pay like a second month or a
Excellent.
third month equivalent, that was to eliminate all doubt, since childcare accounts is a monthly program.
Is that future payment matrix that's referenced?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. If we can get that at some point, that would be excellent.
Trisha?
Well, I'm sorry that I couldn't be at the run or the discussion. It sounds like, there was a lot of good conversation that took place, and I know this has been an ongoing challenge statewide, especially in some more of the rural areas, how painful and kind of almost devastating it's been to some of the employers and their ability to keep their workforce just because of the lack of childcare. And I guess I want to support this, and I applaud the idea of it, but to that point where it's a Band-Aid, it's kind of like, so what are we doing to help with a long-term sustainable solution? And going back to the state where I appreciate, they're like, hey, you have this ARPA funding to use. That's great for now, but then what are we going to do, and how are we having that conversation to build a different environment that, it makes it more attractive to be a daycare provider? I know, just quickly looked up, I remember the workforce innovation grants. I know there were a number of daycares or communities that were provided funding for daycare solutions. I don't know if that's coming back or what other scenarios are taking place. I guess whatever we decide to do to move forward is just to have a very concerted focus on helping not just Waunakee, but really like the statewide solution to this.
Yeah. Erin,
I am definitely in support of this. I thank you for everyone that has pulled this together, and thanks to our childcare providers, especially for the most important work you do for the youth of our community. I wish that this wasn't just a Band-Aid because I want to have all the answers to solve everything, but I think having a roundtable quarterly is a great step. It's a good idea to get us on the forefront of issues and definitely more in touch with the needs proactively of what we can do and our role in things. I would, to me, it makes sense that we line this up for the end of the state funding so that it truly is a Band-Aid and can help planning until we all can figure out what's next. And I reiterate what Joe said of, I think our role might also be to, as a body, then make our opinion on this, our statement, move it up the chain and apply pressure in that way for more long-term solutions on that.
thank you, Erin. Sam?
All my questions have already been asked, luckily. But I would concur that this is an important step for us as a board to take to show that, understand the importance of this issue to our constituents. Obviously, we can lobby the state as much as we can. We know our own legislators are supportive of it. Luckily, certainly, I would encourage all of you to lobby some of the others in committee leadership and so forth, as many of us already have. The assembly candidate that I'm working for now, this is the #1 issue that you hear about in every single, there's 8 communities in that district. We hear all about it in all 8 of them. But no, this is a great step for us to take to move forward.
All right, all my questions have been answered that weren't answered at the beginning. Thank you guys for the very good discussion. Robert, it feels like we might need a second draft of this with some of the changes.
Yes, so if it's, if we can, have the discussion, I don't know if we need a formal motion tonight, but if we can, or we can just say that we want to have the discussion at the April 15th meeting.
Yeah.
But I can come with proposed finalized dates in there. And then we still would have the decision to make it that. So here's kind of the rub. I didn't start asking any facility providers for detailed information to start making projections because I wanted to see how tonight went first before I got anybody's hopes up that there could be funds for this. So if there is general support, then, and this may require to go into May rather than in April, which is fine because round 4 of childcare accounts doesn't end until June. So we have a month or 2 that we have to play here with, but start getting projections so that then we can start making, real decisions about are we okay with this amount of dollars because it would support this many months based off of people who've responded. And then we would make it clear, here's the formal application period and things like that. So I don't mind either working on my own or working with staff or working with contacts just to start getting that out there. And then I can come back with a formal actual resolution.
Let's have you, if it's okay with the staff, have you work with staff, and Renee, that would include, I'm assuming you'd want to be involved in that discussion so that whatever we set up would be as easy as possible. And if I don't know what supporting you looks like. Does it mean we're hiring some summer help to, collect paperwork or?
Yeah, I guess my first read through this was, it looked like a lot more work than maybe it is. So, yeah, I don't exactly know. Exactly.
Ideally, somebody, ideally put together a pretty simple application form and which I can help with, but that all they have to do is say, here's my count, here's my proof, we're giving a glance just to make sure it passes the smell test, and then we can distribute funds. I don't anticipate this would be like a full-on project.
Yeah.
The difficult part, I think, will be just reaching out to the providers on the list, which is why I'm saying I don't mind reaching out to start getting the estimates from them so I can start filling out the numbers so it at least have a realistic look for the board.
And we might want to ask Lauren to help in that. I don't know what her workload looks like right now, but she could maybe be involved in application acceptance and
Well,
whatnot. And I realize I'm probably getting over my skis here by naming.
I think,
people.
I think I'd enjoy having staff together with Robert to talk about, like, on pages 28 and 29, I think there's a litany of the I understand that's,
Mhm.
that if we can remove so that, let's say, a future board 3 or 4 years from now is saying, okay, now we are going to call for the audit.
That's fine.
You know, I see that really putting being a potential dramatic impact
That's fine.
on the staff team and our capabilities.
Mhm.
So let's work together and look at some of those things, and we can have staff collaborate with Robert on that.
All right. Sound like
And-
we have a plan for the 15th?
Yeah, so
don't
so
know
the
if there's a
thought would
motion.
be to actually put this on the agenda more specifically, listed as program for discussion and action,
Yes.
not just general daycare discussion, more for the program.
Nope. Yeah, discussion and action.
To your
Yes,
point,
Trish.
Robert, do you want to move it to May? Give a little more breathing room?
You know what? We have all the contact information from DCF for them, so I think I'll just start sending out contact information to start getting estimates. So no, I think we could do the 15th.
Okay.
Give me motivation to get it done on time.
Well, and if you do want more time to, don't feel.
Oh,
the
yeah,
pressure of the
absolutely. I would
15th.
not rush.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to
Okay.
rush it if it's not.
Yes.
Could we consider adding certified providers?
Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't address that. If you can get me the names of the 2 that I can add to the list, it's no problem to add them.
I will call for Cs and get those. Thank you.
Okay.
And is there on page 31 of the proposal of the packet, it does have a bullet point for certified providers. So were they included in the original state program or not? Okay.
They're not really, I was kind of unclear about that too, but I didn't want to remove it because I was
Yeah,
like,
no,
I didn't
that-
know what it would mean if I did remove
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I didn't take it that they were.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we would want to make sure to not exclude them. All right, then we've got a plan for the 15th. Okay. So next item on the agenda then is related, but not necessarily a twin. So we are spending down our ARPA dollars, and I wanted to have a discussion and an action on the ARPA balance and community needs. So we have this item as a potential use of ARPA dollars before we move into a definitive plan to spend the rest of them. I am hoping that we can put out a call to the departments to see if there is anything that they need. Not saying that we're going to fund one over the other, but at least have everything on the table if there is a dire need out there. I was specifically thinking of our seniors, some of our other vulnerable populations that we have not perhaps had a chance to address with some of our recent actions on ARPA. So do we want to have a discussion of that, or is it okay? Are you guys in agreement that we could put out a call to departments just to make sure we're checking everything we need to check? Yeah.
Well, I'll just say, Kristen, that if there is a dire need,
Mhm.
you would be hearing from our departments already. If the board were to say,
Mhm.
okay, we'd like to know from all departments if you were allocated an additional $20,000 unexpected, what's the first thing you would do with that to the benefit of the department and the community? I mean, it's
Mhm.
another way to ask the question, I think. And I can put that exercise to department heads if you want. I haven't done that. And I bet it would not be hard for them to give, for each of them to give you, I mean, it's in their heads. They know what that one thing would be. So if you can help me with, if you want to ask the question, offer me the parameters that would help you then in weighing those requests.
All right. I think the parameter for me, at least, and I'm not going to speak for the whole board, would be appropriate ARPA use of dollars. Mhm. Just so we're aware of what we're making a decision and of, between daycare funding and, is there a need or two out there?
To the legal answer to that is
Mhm.
any expense is a valid use of ARPA dollars with the remaining 90 whatever thousand we have.
All right.
If you want to put some categories or some asterisks on types of uses, that will help department heads, look more specifically at areas of concern.
So
Mhm.
I didn't I don't have it projection and I'm not on the Zoom, so I can't put this up there, but I did make myself a nice little pie chart visualization after going through the list and categorizing things out by what they were obviously were. We've spent, over $500,000 on building improvements, about $250,000 each on public safety and equipment, just general equipment purchases. And then our next highest one was nonprofits, but the nonprofit payments, 120,000. So I was kind of curious as to the things that could possibly be remaining. Where is it that, since we've spent a lot in those areas, that I wasn't entirely sure what would be going to, and I say this somewhat defensively of the resolution I just put forward,
Yeah.
but.
But I'm not intending it to be an attack on the.
Oh, no, I
proposal or
know.
not
I
proposal at all.
I was just thinking like if we started competing for other things, it's like we have spent a lot of money in a lot of these areas
Yeah.
already.
Is there one or two other things that we haven't done or that have come up? We have AED equipment, we've got, a lot of capital improvements that we've made. But have we put a general call out there, and are there other pressing needs that we just might not have asked about yet? So.
Just a question. So we're assuming though that the column that shows like the 94 plus or minus available is the one that should be looking at and anticipating that the funds that have been committed more or less will be fully spent. Or am I understanding that?
That is that's the intent.
Okay.
Because there's a couple lines on there that are zeroed out because we determined we did not need that funding to ease in the budget increases for fire and EMS. We had enough fund balance to do that. So, they're zeroed out in both columns, but otherwise those projects are usually in the middle or just about to start.
So could we put the question out there? 20,000 feels like a lot, maybe 10,000. If you had an extra 10,000 to spend, what would you spend it on? If we are allocating all of the ARPA dollars on the 15th to this program, then are there items that we should be looking at finding money for elsewhere too? We can also consider how we might fulfill those needs.
Yeah,
I just
definitely. It's not going to be an arduous task for your department heads to let you know. So I'll
right.
call on all of them to put one nugget
Yeah.
and get a list for you to think about.
Yeah. And I, again, totally in favor of this proposal. I just want to make sure we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's before we spend the last of the ARPA dollars. Nyla, did you? No. Okay.
I actually had one more question. Are we on track with the tourism tax or the room tax this year too?
Renee.
We are, so we collected enough in 2023 to make the full $10,000 payment to the chamber.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right. All right. Then no motion there either. Is that any more on that discussion? No? Okay, the 15th is going to be an exciting meeting. And lots good to be done. Next item on the agenda, and thank you guys for coming tonight and speaking and listening to our discussion about it. We appreciate all of the work you do and your commitment to the community and to the kids in the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think all of us have been there as daycare kids or daycare parents or neighbors of daycare children in some way. Yeah. So, all right. Next item on the agenda is, let me see here. Administrator review. Yep. And I've got a statement that I need to read here. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 1C for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The village board may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. So do we have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
And voice vote for that one?
Aye.
A roll call vote, I'm sorry. Thank you, Sam.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Trisha Brown,
Yes.
Sam Kaufman,
Yes.
Kristen Rungy,
Yes.
Erin Moran,
Yes.
Joe Zisberger,
Yes.